Please show me in the Bible. And Jesus was never offended. Jesus will take it as the pillars of the earth are the Lord's. There's a being who controls what is happening here. Nothing is happening here on its own accord. Scriptures reveal to us that everything happening here, there is a power that is sustaining it. There is a power. And if you study Genesis chapter 1 from verse 1 to 30, the Bible reveals to us how God set everything in motion. If you study Psalm 24, verse 1 to 2, the Bible reveals to us how God regulates the activity of the earth. So the design of the earth is not without coordination from a God that is all powerful. Hebrews 1 verse 3, the Bible told us he sustains all things by the word of his power. So that's an argument of the existence of God. Number 3, we spoke about the ontological argument. This argument speaks about the essence of creation. You have seen that for time immemorial, every being is looking for a God to worship. What is that power that is compelling all of us to look for a God? Those who can't find a true God create one for themselves. It goes to mean that there is something on our inside that knows that there is a God, and it's because it's in us, that's why we are seeking God. Sacrifices to spirits have been since man became wise. The pursuit and the seeking of God has been since man existed. In fact, Paul visited a city and they had all the gods they knew. They still knew that there is one they don't know, and they created a statue for the unknown God. Who taught them that they needed to seek God? So this is an intuitive understanding. That means the subject of God is beyond debate. There is something on your inside that makes you know there is God. And the Bible told us that thing on our inside is the light of God. In John chapter 1 verse 4, it said, in him was life, and the life was the light of men. And he said, the light shineth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. So every man that comes into this world has a measure of light in his spirit that affirms to him unconsciously yet intuitively that there is a God somewhere. Even the atheist that is arguing that there's no God, he's arguing that there's no God because he knows there's a God. Because why is he not arguing about other things that are not? Why is it about God that is arguing that there's no God? You don't argue about what is not. That you are arguing about what is not means something is suggesting to you there's something like that. Because apart from God, how many other things are they arguing about that is not? There is intuition. We call that argument ontological argument. And then we look at the anthropological argument, which is the argument of the design of man. The Bible reveals to us that man is created in the image and the likeness of God. And when we read our Bible, we see that some of the characteristics that we possess, both in our nature and in our actions, are consistent with God. For example, intrinsically built into us is a desire for good and a hate for evil. We see that that is also in God. Intrinsically built into us is a triune kind of existence, spirit, soul, and body. The Bible reveals to us that God is a triune being. So man's imagery and man's righteous character in his pure state reveals something about God. So that argument also is an argument that suggests and proves the existence of God. Genesis 1:26, it said, let us make man in our own image after our likeness. And then we have the biological argument. Since we came into this world, we have not seen life begin on its own. Every life comes from a pre-existing life. All of the organisms that exist, no one just appears. From the amoeba to the spiders to the snakes up until man who is at the top of the chain. No lion appears. No man appears. No snake appears. Any life you see came from pre-existing life. The question now is, where did the first man come from? It means there is an author of life that created that man. And the Bible revealed to us clearly, Genesis chapter 1 verse 26, let us make man in our own image, after our likeness. And he said, in the image of God he made him, male and female, he made them both. Genesis chapter 2 verse 7, it said God formed the man from the ground, and he breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living soul. So we know that the life of man came from within God. John chapter 1 verse 4, in him was life, the life was the light of man. So we came from a life source. And so our emergence proves that there is a God. Are you following this? I'm telling you this because you may stand somewhere and somebody will start telling you that what you call God is a fiction of your imagination. And what you call church is religion. Is born out of you are being brainwashed. And many Christians will be stranded. They won't know what to do. If they tell them, if you claim you have God, prove him. And it's not everywhere you can use miracles. Because if you use miracles, a magician will also come and do something. So they will tell you there are many spirits that empower men. There are places where you need to argue what they can see. And they cannot deny. It is in such corridors that these kinds of theological arguments become important. I'm reiterating it because it's important. Don't just sit and listen. When you leave this class, listen to it again. Let it become part of your consciousness. Apart from the fact that it has an impact on your faith and your consciousness, it will become a defense around your conviction. Because we have made it look almost as if Christianity is a mindless religious move. So we don't use our mind. If we are praying, it's like this. If we are singing, it's like this. And nobody is thinking. See, there is a what, there is a how, and there is a why. Any spiritual thing you are doing, and all you know is what, you won't have result. You are wasting your time. So don't just know worship. Don't just know prayer. Don't just know fasting. After you know what, also labor to know how. Because how is superior to what? It is from how that results come from. And then don't just know how, know why. It is from why that meaning comes from. So I can know what as prayer. And I will just be praying, but I don't know how to pray. I won't have results. The day I know how to pray, I will start having results. But I can have results and don't even know why I pray. So how produces results, why produces meaning and essence. So in addition to what, make sure you know how and know why, if your life will be impactful. And what we are teaching us here will be the foundation of how and why of God. We have the moral argument. There's a moral law in the soul of every man. So every man knows the difference between good and evil without being taught. Even a child. If a child insults you, it's waiting for, it becomes afraid. He knows he or she has done something wrong. Every being has that moral code inside him to discern between good and evil. And every man also knows that he has an intrinsic responsibility to uphold good and to stop evil. I told you that's why if you are sitting in the public and somebody slaps somebody and starts beating that person, you will see that naturally people will react. What did he do to you? Because we have that intrinsic responsibility to uphold good and to stop evil. Where did it come from? It came from our design. God was the one who put it there. And the Bible calls it the law of the conscience. In Romans chapter 2 verse 14 and 15, it says even if you don't have the law of God, it says your conscience is a law unto you. And on the basis of your conscience, you will be judged. It's God who put it there. Are you following this? And then finally we said we have the argument of congruity, which is the argument of agreement. Every argument about God proves in the affirmative that there is God. And so if 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 all affirm it, then it is true. Even the Bible said in the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses, every truth is established. This one is 7 witnesses. So we cannot but agree that God exists. Now, having proven God's existence, we now went a bit further into his nature. And we say God's nature is principally a spirit being. John chapter 4 verse 24. Jesus said God is spirit. He said they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. And we said this is why God is invincible and God is intangible to us. Because he is spirit. So this will take the pressure from you when you are dealing with God and you say, Lord, I have not seen you. Why have I not seen you? He is spirit. He can reveal himself to you. But your faith is not based on seeing him physically. Because essentially speaking, God is what? Spirit. There are a few that he has revealed himself to. And there are others who have never seen him. All of them fulfilled purpose. So you deal with God not by seeing him. You deal with God by faith. And for you to relate with him by faith and from the place of rest is to understand that he is spirit. Because his spirit he is both invincible and intangible to your realm. But I said, although he's invincible and intangible, there are three ways he expresses his essence that makes him tangible. I said number one is in his love. So you may not see God with your naked eye, but when you interact with the love of God, you will feel his tangibility. John 3:16 said, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. Whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. There is a witness of salvation in our spirit that is born out of the love of God. Why does God show so much love? Because God is love. 1 John chapter 4 verse 8, the Bible says God is love. So one of the ways we interact with God's tangibility is in the expression of his love. I said the second way God manifests his spirit essence to make him tangible to us is in his light. 1 John chapter 1 verse 5, he said, God is light. In him is no variableness nor shadow of turning. And I said for some of us who believe in God and have a relationship with him, many times on issues of life, we find ourselves demonstrating wisdom and intelligence that is not a product of our studies or our expertise. That dimension of wisdom is a manifestation of the light of God. The Bible said if we have fellowship with him and we have fellowship with one another, it said we will walk in light. So there is a light of God that comes to shine on our darkness. So you will discover that you have made many right decisions in your life. Not because you studied about it in the university, but because at that moment of decision, you just knew what to do. How did you come to know what to do and you were precise in your action? It's because there's a light in your spirit. That is God demonstrating his tangibility to you. And this is why we pray. Because now we know that there's a light in us. So before we take action, we go to consult with God so that that light can shine forth. And he said, my word is a light unto your feet and a lamp unto your path. So we don't walk in darkness because our God is the light of our spirit. And then finally, I said the Bible called him a consuming fire. Hebrews 12:29. It said our God is a consuming fire. And I said that speaks of his judgment and his authority. Why do you think you err and you lose your peace and you want to repent? Because there is a consciousness and an evidence, a tangible aspect of the lordship of God over your soul that although you can't explain, but it's tangible to you. So you see that somebody does what is wrong, he loses his peace. He's afraid. He cannot rest. What is that convicting power on his inside? It's the consuming fire. That same power in you is what puts the responsibility on you to do what is right from what is wrong. And so many people who don't know about God or have a relationship with him, the Bible said their conscience have been seared with a hot iron. So they don't do good and they don't feel a responsibility for good. But for you who know him in his tangibility, you don't only strive to do good. When you do what is wrong, you can't sleep. Because there is a judgment dimension of God that is tangible to your soul. And if you don't make peace with God, before you leave this world, there will be anxiety. You need to go to where people die frequently. It will put a fear to serve God in your heart. Some people, when they are dying, they are literally shouting and begging. Because the judgment of God becomes more real to them. You know, the closer you get to eternity, the more real it is to you. Now, while you are far from eternity, breathing oxygen, you can argue and debate God. The day you leave your body, the debate will end. You will see hell. You will see heaven. You will see the white throne. Nobody will need to explain to you. You will know that this is the white throne. You will know that this is a lake of fire. And you will know that you belong there. But thank God we have chosen God from time. Thank God we have accepted Jesus. And thank God we are following the leading of the Spirit. Thank God I don't belong to hellfire. So for us, when we depart in peace. It's a precious in the eyes of the Lord. It's the dying of the saints. For us, when we are going, we are conscious of reward. That for all the good that we have done on earth, God is not unjust to forget our labor of love. So we are thinking like Paul. He said, I have finished my race. I have completed my course. There remaineth for me a crown of life. Not, oh, where do I go to? No, I'm going to be with God. And I'm not just going to be with God. I'll be crowned a prince. That's where I'm going to. They say absence from the body is presence with the Lord. And we know this thing. That's what our faith anchors on. But it's because we believe in his tangibility. Now, having dealt with that, we decided to press even deeper into his nature. And we said there are two dimensions to God's nature. There is his essential nature, which is what makes him. And there is his moral nature, which is how he expresses his purpose and his will in his generality. Are you following? His essential nature is exclusively his. He can't share it. But his moral nature is communicable. So everyone that God creates in his image, he imparts his moral nature into them. So these are the two natures or dimensions of nature that defines who God is. And we began last week by looking at his moral nature. We said number one, God is eternal. And we say what that means is that he has no beginning, he has no end. There has never been a time where God is not. And there will never be a time where God will not be. He is before the beginning and he is after the end. So he is eternal in nature. Isaiah 41 verse 4. I just read one or two scriptures. Isaiah 41 verse 4. Quickly. It says, who hath wrought and done it, calling generations from the beginning. It says, I the Lord, the first and with the last, I am he. Imagine how he introduced himself. Who has created all these things you are seeing? He said, it is me. I called it forth before the beginning. I am with the beginning. I am with the end. I am he. What a way to introduce himself. If they say introduce yourself now, you say, I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, I'm a banker, I'm a businessman. God doesn't introduce himself like that. I am before the beginning. I am after the end. I created all things. I am eternal. My God. What a salutation. See, this is why you shouldn't be proud. As you are sitting now, all the seconds you live here is already counted. The reason you think you are Alpha and Omega is because you didn't know. If they show you now, it's like bandwidth. You will become active about your purpose on earth. Be active, be active. Well, the bandwidth is still much anyway. So, take your time to know God and serve him. Glory to God. 1 Timothy 1:17. God is eternal. He has always been. He will always be. He is from everlasting to everlasting. He is before the beginning. He is after the end. He said, now unto the King eternal, immortal, invincible, the only wise God, be honor and glory forever and ever. That's why I told you, one of the reasons we serve God is because of who he is. Before what he has done. So everything you are seeing came from God. Because he is before the first. He is before the beginning. He is eternal. The second attribute of God, essential attribute of God we looked at, is that God is self-existent. He is the only being that his existence is because of him. You and I are not existing for ourselves. You and I are existing, but God is not existing because of you. He's existing because of him. So he's the only being that his purpose is in him. His existence is in him. And his being is also him. Nothing, he's not here for anything and for anybody. He's here for himself. And every other thing is here because of him. So he is the self-existent one. Exodus chapter 4 verse 14. The Bible said when he was introducing himself. Exodus 3:14, quickly. And God said unto Moses, tell them, because he was asking, when I go, who should I tell them sent me? He said, tell them, I am that I am have sent you. I am what I am. I will be what I will be. I have always been what I am. And that's how I will always be. So I am because of I. I'm not am because... Sometimes you need nomenclature and utterance to speak about him. This is why anything God does is right, so long as he likes it. Because he's living for himself. You are not living for yourself. Imagine those of you who are leaders. If you don't come here for service, you are in trouble. But if God chooses not to come for this service, he's right. We are here because of him. Are you following? If he chose to be somewhere else, he will be right. So if you are wise, go and look for where he is and go there. So the service is because of him. It's not because of the service. The altar is because of him. It's not because of the altar. His meaning is in himself. His existence is in himself. His purpose is in himself. See, that's why he's called God. So when we are saying God, this is why. There's no other being that operates in this class. Only him operates here. All the other beings that are worshipped across the world, they have a beginning. And we know their history. And all the other beings that have been, once upon a time, they were living to achieve something. God is not trying to achieve anything. He is his achievement. His purpose is in himself. Self-existence. Number 3, he is immutable. It means 2 things. Number 1, God cannot change. And number 2, God has never changed. He has always been the way he is. And he will always be the way he is. He cannot change, and he has never changed. If Adam comes now, he will say it's the way he was that he still is. So time doesn't change him. He doesn't evolve. That's why the Bible calls him Ancient of Days. He's not growing older. He's as old as he will always be. If the angels that have lived for billions of aeons, they will tell you, this is how this being has been. We have never seen any change. He's as he is that he is. He's immutable. And when he talked about himself, this is what he said. Malachi 3:6. He said, I am the Lord. I change not. So you, the children of Israel, are not consumed. Now, it's on the basis of his immutability that we can trust him. So if God tells you, tomorrow you will prosper, you can bank on it. Nothing will change it. Nothing can change it. And he will not change. If God tells you that don't worry, you will not die, go and rejoice. Because you know that the authority and the state from whence he spoke, that's the same thing, state and authority with which he will be tomorrow. If I tell you that in 2 weeks' time, meet me, I will give you something. In 2 weeks, I may be in Congo. And I may really want to give you that. I mean, every man to have integrity. But what happens if you come in 2 weeks and I say, sorry, they just robbed me. What I wanted to give you was stolen. I don't have it anymore. So I have integrity, but it's no longer there. And you can come, I can say, I lost it. And truly, I may lose it. But God, you can't steal from God. God can't lose it. He will have it. And in case he doesn't have it, he will create it. Because he is creator. He's not just sustainer, he is creator. So when God cannot change, it's because everything he needs to be himself comes from him. He is the sustainer of himself and is the sustainer of everything around him. So you can bank on him. I don't know any other God like this. That's why I told you, we are not worshiping the same God. The one we are worshiping introduced himself to us. He said he's eternal. He said he's self-existent. He said he's immutable. Hope you notice that all the scriptures I'm reading here, he's the one who is saying it himself. It's not somebody talking about him. He's the one introducing himself. From Isaiah 41 verse 4 that speaks of his eternity, to Malachi 3:6 that speaks of his immutability, to Exodus 3:14 that speaks of his self-existent nature. Number 4, essential attribute. We said God is omnipotent. Omnipotent. That means he has all powers. at all times. There has never been a time when God depletes in power. He has all powers for all things at all times. So Jesus was speaking. He said, with man, it's impossible. He said, but with God, all things are what? Possible. With man, it's what? Impossible. But with God, all things are possible. And we said, according to omnipotence, it means God has the power to do all things, and God also has the power to put his power under his will. You know, people come up and start saying, you say God has all power. God can do all things. Can God lie? Lying is not part of his will. So he has the authority to do only what is within his will. So omnipotence means he has all power, and he has all power to control all power. So he only does what is within his will. It's on this wise that Jeremiah said, what's the mantra now? What God cannot do does not exist. He's speaking about the omnipotence of God. But the omnipotence of God is not lawless. The omnipotence of God is within the confines of God's will. See, there are people who have power, but they don't have power to control their power. So they stand up today. If they want to kill people, they kill them. They stand up today. If they want to molest people, they molest them. That's not God. God has all the power to do all things, but he has the power to keep his power within his will. That's why we call him omnipotent. So the power of God is holy and righteous and consistent with the will of God. Satan doesn't have all powers, and he still can't control the little that he has. Any direction his appetite takes him, he wields it there. And there are many men like that, like some of our leaders. The moment they give them small power in government, they first of all come. How much is in that account? Money that the previous government saved, if they have the wisdom to go and buy 10 cars, bring them here. Okay, the money is not for cars. So the money is for health, it's for security, it's for education. He doesn't care. The little power, he can't control it. So the power controls him. So God has all power, but the power of God does not control God. God controls his power. Are you following? So he is omnipotent. Psalms 1. Okay, Revelations 19 verse 6. I'm giving you just one scriptures. And I heard, as it were, the voice of a great multitude, as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of mighty thundering, saying, Hallelujah, for the Lord God omnipotent reigneth. It is in the context of his power that he reigns. And then we said God is omniscient. And I said as omniscient, he is all-knowing. So he knows all things in all times at all times. Are you following this? He knows what? All things in all times at all times. See, although I'm looking at everything, I don't know what's happening in the media there. Somebody may be whispering to somebody there and say, you get chingon there, give me, I want you something. I'll be assuming here that the people on the keyboard are praying in tongues and they are typing the scriptures and quoting. Somebody may be there now dozing. I no sleep yesterday. I don't know. And then even those of you who are sitting in front of me here, somebody might sit in front and his face is like he's interacting with the spirit realm. Meanwhile, he's saying, if I knew, I would have ate before coming. Why didn't I eat? And this food I already microwaved it. What happened? Meanwhile, I'm thinking he's being blessed. He's receiving the word of the Lord. But not God. God knows what? All things, at all times, in all times. Now, what does it mean at all times? That means everything happening everywhere now. God knows it. And then what does it mean in all times? That means all the times that have been, both in eternity and in time. So the timeless time and the time that is calibratable. God knows everything that has happened. So as I'm talking now, Everything that happened in every second of the day yesterday, God knew it. In all of the universe. And everything that already will happen, it has not yet happened. No. Everything that will happen tomorrow, in every second, God already knows it. And He doesn't just know it for yesterday and tomorrow. He knows it since the first creation, and He knows it till the end of time. If that's all God knows, it's already too much. But that is not all. God also knows everything inside God. Hope you know God is bigger than existence. Existence came out of Him. As big as existence is a dot inside God. So God does not just know everything in existence at all times and in all time. God knows everything inside God at all times and in all times. As you are sitting here, you don't know your liver. You don't know your brain. You have never seen it. So have you seen the back of your ear before? You don't know here. But God knows everything inside God at all times, in all time. So when we say God is omniscient, He knows all things. See, this is why I'm not afraid of tomorrow. God knows every step I will take tomorrow. God knows every step I will take this year. So if I commit my life to God, it is the biggest insurance. I know that the one who knows tomorrow is the one who is leading me into tomorrow. So I'm not coming into tomorrow like a stranger. I'm coming into tomorrow like somebody who has lived there for aeons. Because the one taking me there created tomorrow.